So Patriots, they've been active as we talked about with free agency. Just came out of the NFL owners meetings. We touched on Stephon Diggs in a past episode, and I feel like the more and more news is coming out, the more it is trending. As I said, toward them most likely taking Will Campbell with that pick if they do end up keeping it. Um, but oddly enough, when were starting this conversation, let's say a month ago, we were pretty much unanimous across the board. Not you, Mike, but the three of us that Drake May was the thing we kind of felt the best about on this team. Him and Christian Gonzalez,
Old.
and I was actually thinking the other day, and I think this is a good thing that now Drake May is kind of the question mark for me when I look at both the offense and the defense. In that, like, I like the way the team is constructed, and whether this team is in the mix, the wild card mix down the stretch. Uh, Really, my question is like how Drake May responds in his second year, if he continues that growth or if he takes a step back. Because I think if he is what people think he can be with this team that's now around him, I think that this is a pretty good group. If he has a sophomore slump, I think that we could be back at maybe a 6-11 team. So all that being said, is kind of the guy that I was once most confident in is now kind of my biggest question mark. But I think that that is a good sign for the team that the second year quarterback should kind of be one of your bigger question marks, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to be the guy, this has got to be the year he steps up, especially if you use a premium pick on either an offensive tackle or a skill player. Um, I mean, yeah, pretty much the only thing that has been set and forget about the Patriots this offseason has been the quarterback position. And that's something that is the inverse for more teams. And so I think they just like, I I think Drake May is a legitimate franchise quarterback. I think they need to make sure that last year wasn't just so bad that anything he did looked good. Um, because, he was making shitty chicken salad out of chicken shit, but it's like it was still chicken shit. So I I think that there's a jump to be had. This team is obviously a lot better, and I think if they end up going the Will Campbell route, which like I don't know. I'm kind of mad about that, but then, you can't sit there and complain about the offensive line being as porous as it was for the last few years. And it's like I thought the Chargers did the smartest thing in the world drafting Joe Alt because they could never keep Justin Herbert upright. And Joe Alt was very good right off the jump. That is an investment in your quarterback if you go the Will Campbell route. Um, at the same time, I think you could probably trade down, help yourself out for the future, and still get a more than competent offensive lineman. And that's where you start to get into those, opportunity cost discussions. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you want to make sure that Drake May is positioned to take a step forward, then you have to go offensive line.
As far as the draft is concerned, like if they're at all convinced or believe that the draft can fall the way that they wanted to, or like they think was the kid from Missouri he was a right tackle, it was Membu. Like if he's there, the problem is like you got to find somebody who wants to move up to your shitty pick. Like
That's
that's
my
the
thing.
thing.
Yeah,
Is the way
yeah.
that like this is kind of playing out for them is like it's the worst year to have the fourth pick, and so like yeah, in a perfect world, it would be great if you could move down to 7 and get an extra pick somewhere. Um, and that's, you can still take a guy who is Will Campbell light or might be just as good, if not better than him. Like, then yeah, that's great. But like, that's kind of make believe. So, um, yeah, and it does sound like too that the way that the board's kind of shaking out is it's not going to fall in their favor. But I guess a lot can change between now and the end of the month. If that's the case, I at least, the for sale sign goes up very quickly because at that point, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to know what kind of player Will Campbell is gonna be, at, the NFL. Like I'm not, I'm no Brian Balding or anything like that. So, um, at that point, it's like let's see what we can turn this into because we still have enough holes, and I think that kind of ties the loop with what you were talking about, Ben, where it's like I actually I like what they've done this offseason in some regards. I am going to talk about both sides of my mouth here, is where it's like they have raised the floor considerably, like to the point where this isn't a reflection of what Drake May is going to be for his career, but they feel like the Ryan Tannehill Titans now. And I mean that as well as much of a compliment as one can give when talking about the Ryan Tannehill Titans, where it's like, I don't know if Drake May is going to be, the franchise quarterback for 17 games consistently this year, but they're going to be in the neighborhood of 7 to 10 wins if it all kind of shakes out the way that they think it can. And I think that's good. And this is not a 1-year project, obviously. This is, let's see how it goes this year. Fire Elliott Wolf, get more Vrabel guys in there, and we're off to the races. But like, this just feels like a far more professional outfit than it did a year ago, which is a major step in the right direction. And that, I think, kind of, we need to step back to the draft outlook and be like, how much influence is that new thing, however you want to define it, going to have on the draft as well, which is a question is very difficult to answer, obviously.
Yeah, Logan, as I mentioned before, I'm gigantic when it comes to competence on coaching. That's all I ask for is competence and capability. And I just feel like, especially when it comes to the offensive line or the line play in general, I think just competent coaching is going to have such a drastic effect on those guys this year, whether it's new players or incumbent players. That was really that's something that is stuck out to me about all of Vrabel's comments thus far, is that when you are confident and you believe that what you're doing, and that other people know what you're doing, the way that he can talk about things is much less Mayo just came off sometimes as a guy who was arrogant because he was trying to convince you and himself that he knew what he was doing, if that makes any sense. And Vrabel will, they'll ask him about, what's the plan here, and he won't try to fake it he has a plan. He'll lie to you. He'll say oh, I don't. But Mayo would almost do a JJ Redick thing where he would try too hard to convince you that he knows what he's doing, and that works really well on LinkedIn, when you're trying to convince everybody of your professional exploits. But it does the opposite, and it engenders less confidence. Whereas with Vrabel, every time he talks, I'm like, okay, I think that this guy, at the very least, he might not be the second coming of Tom Landry, but I think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it is a far more professional outfit. And I think you're bang on about the Mayo thing. Little peek behind the curtain here. I can be a defensive person sometimes. And sometimes my wife will say something that I will take as an accusation, and it's not an accusation. And she's like, well, if you don't think you did anything wrong, why are you taking it as an accusation? Why are you arguing so hard to convince me that that's not what you're doing? And it's well, because I'm trying to convince myself that that's not what I'm doing, because I just want to make sure. And so it is Mayo was told for a very long time that he was the second coming of, the guy had it written into his freaking contract that he was going to succeed Bill Belichick. And I think that he was pretty much set up to fail once they started doing that. I agree that the floor has been raised considerably to the point that they're not a playoff team, but you cannot have the level of, for multiple years now, there's been incompetence. This predates Mayo. You think about the Jacoby Myers debacle in Vegas and all that stuff. That happened under Belichick's watch. And there were wide receivers running their mouths under Belichick's watch. This is not a new thing. And so it didn't work at the end of the Belichick era. It didn't work at the end of the Mayo era. And so now it's all right, it does. Supposedly this is what Mike Vrabel is able to do, is command the locker room and all that stuff. What I just wonder is, all right, he really wants his guys in there. I think about the Chaim Bloom Red Sox, and it's he was supposed to be so great at, finding guys on the margins so that way you could just spend and off you go. And it got to the point where it's hey, Chaim Bloom, why won't you spend any money except on Trevor Story? And it's you don't have to keep operating in this small market way. I worry about Mike Vrabel trying to recreate the Ryan Tannehill Titans, because he doesn't necessarily need to do that. You don't need to just gut it out with dirt dogs and bring anyone who's ever gone through Nashville back up to New England. So And that's as somebody who has wanted them to completely neuter everything from the Belichick era and just move on and turn the freaking page. So the idea of like, let's just recreate the Titans. It's like the Titans didn't win shit with Mike Vrabel. They overperformed, which is great, but it's like, all right, cool. The Brewers overperformed every year with Craig Counsell. Like, what does that get you after a while?
But do you honestly think that they're trying to recreate the Titans?
I mean, some of their free agency moves have suggested that. Right, Spillane was a former Titan. Who was the safety? His name's escaping me. They got him the day before.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like in the personnel standpoint, okay, I like maybe some of the key, but I'm looking like just
Harold
like,
Landry.
let's
Sorry,
go on
Harold
the
Landry.
offensive side is the Titans were known for they had an elite running back, elite wide receiver, questionable quarterback. I don't feel like that is how they're putting together this offense. So that's just like as an example. Like they don't.
So
It doesn't sound like they're gonna run Ramondre Stevenson 35 times a game, and they certainly don't have AJ Brown. So I don't know. I don't necessarily see. I get what you're saying with like maybe some of the cultural stuff, but I don't know
that's
that I'm
more where
seeing.
my head's at.
Okay, all right.
Because they unless you have Derrick Henry, you cannot run that type of offense. Like that was, that was very unique. And so I don't expect them to try and do something like that. It's the culture thing. It's the like I forget what Vrabel said, but during his press conference, but like once all the beat writers started doing cartwheels about how he was all no bullshit and all this stuff, like I don't know. Maybe this is the 30-year-old millennial in me coming out, but it's like I just can't get up for that. Like that doesn't necessarily mean anything to me. It's like great. I'm glad that you're going to have a team of dirt dogs and like all that stuff. Like the Patriots should be a better product to watch because of that. But like if you're going to try to establish that culture, he doesn't even know what he has in the room. Like they're completely turning over like in terms of culture and personnel, and maybe that's why he's trying to bring in all these guys he's familiar with. But it's like he doesn't. You mean you mean to tell me Jalen Polk, after running his mouth every single week, is suddenly going to become this like, whatever Mike Vrabel is going to turn him into? Maybe that'll probably happen with some guys. This idea that he's going to come in and bring this whole culture shift when more than half the roster he doesn't even know. I don't know. That's not to say it won't work, but just this idea that we have to recreate this culture is like, okay, great. What about everything else?
I have a lot that I would like to get to because I actually think I still struggle, or I struggle more and more every day to figure out what it is I like about sports. And like this is actually kind of the stuff I do enjoy talking about because I think it's as I get older, I can apply life lessons that I've learned to what might be going on here. And obviously, it's apples and oranges to a certain extent. So, as the person who brought up the Titans first, let me just say that was not meant to be a literal comp, but yes, as Logan said, it's kind of a cultural thing. My big proclamation about Mike Vrabel and the Patriots is that the next great Patriots team will be coached by somebody other than Mike Vrabel, and it'll be because Mike Vrabel helped get them there. And I think that's like, unfortunately for him, probably what his lasting legacy is here is he's the guy before the guy, where it's they go out and get what it's risky. It might ultimately be risky, but it's like Drake May is 29 years old or whatever. We need to squeeze the most out of his prime as we can. Let's go find to borrow the radio talk radio parlance locally, like the guy in the tight pants who can orchestrate the offense, whether like the Ben Johnson type of whatever year that's going to be. So I think that's the next so he's, I don't want to call him a placeholder because that seems disrespectful, but I think that's how this thing plays out is he gets them back to extremely respectable, but can't get them over the hump, which is exactly what happened in Tennessee. So I think that's the case. I do want to circle back to the Mayo thing because this ties in all with like the cultural stuff is like, I think I use the same exact, like maybe it's out there too, like the LinkedIn coach thing. And you see this, and this is the stuff I'm talking about where like you see this in actual in real life where it's the person in the conference room who uses the buzz terms and knows how to grease the right skids is the person who gets ahead. And when the bullets start flying, those are usually the people who have their heads the farthest up their asses. And like I think what I like about Vrabel is he is comfortably, confident, borderline arrogant, and is very comfortable with being a prick. And like, so maybe this is, as Logan was kind of talking about earlier, maybe now I'm starting to kind of reveal, hold the mirror up to myself, where it's like, I do think I have some Mike Vrabel in me, where it's like, I thought the other day when he was talking, he did that thing with we won March, and she's like, well, are you happy? Karen Gregan asked him, are you happy? He's like, I'm never happy. I'm like, I get that. And like that type of attitude can wear on people, even if you're saying the right things. So like, I think that might be part of it as well, where, that, people just don't like pricks, but like where it's different though. And I am interested to see how this plays out, is like me comparing my professional life to the NFL is kind of foolish. So like it works a lot better. But like, Logan, to your point about Polk or whoever, like, I think Vrabel has enough of a leash that if Polk doesn't get his shit together, he's gone. Like, that's where you're at now. And like, they're going to be comfortable making those sorts of decisions on their roster based on the vision of this guy in whom they've put a lot of trust and faith.
Yeah. I certainly don't think it's going to get worse under Vrabel. I'll put it
that would be stunning. Yeah.
It can't get much worse.
I actually think this is the one sport where you can have that 1 year snap culture shift.
Yeah.
I think it's because you have non-guaranteed contracts. You have, especially this, where there's going to be so many new players on the roster. It's tough. Like basketball, your culture is always going to be controlled by your highest paid player. Doesn't matter. Baseball and hockey, it's always tough because those guys in general have usually you've spent a few years in that organization before you get up to the big team. So you're kind of assimilated by that point. But I don't know. I would not be surprised if it's just right away, Logan. It's like you do see like all of a sudden it is. I think that's why you can to a totally different culture this season.
I think that's why you can bring back those Titans guys, even if it's just for a year or two. I think those guys are important to getting to that spot. I didn't mean to jump in.
Yeah. No. I mean, like the Dolphins are probably going to be bad this year, I think, and like the Jets are the Jets. So like it'd be irresponsible of the Patriots to not start putting their foot. Like again, you have the quarterback. Once you have the quarterback, you got to get up and go. Like your window is open.
I don't think that 10 wins this season is totally out of the question with their schedule. If like
schedule's a joke.
Yeah. If Drake May develops the way that he can, and they actually draft well. So
the division could be way down too. That's the other, to Logan's point, where it's not just them. Like the Jets are, and going to be in the running for the number 1 pick again. Like that's just, it's going to be ugly. So
yeah. I mean, the Jaguars were one of the worst teams in the NFL, and like I think they might win the NFC or the AFC South this year. So it's like, I believe it could switch quickly.